7:36 here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM, and joining us right now in studio is a man who, by my count, has been in the mayor's office for less than 30 days, 2 days shy of 1 month.
However, he's making his 28, 29. I knew it was somewhere around there.
He's making his third appearance on the Metro South Morning Show as the mayor of Brockton. Welcome to the program, Mr. Bill Carpenter.
Hey, good morning, guys. It's great to be back on PM in the AM, and clearly I need to find something else to do in the morning.
No, we enjoy having you here in the morning. It keeps the folks informed. It gives us content to talk about. Let's talk about...
Well, I want to make a quick comment on something I heard you guys talk about. So you were, in the last segment when I was driving in, you were talking about the boxer who died from his injuries.
Yes.
So it's funny. So it reminds me of a tragic story, but... when people ask me about my most memorable fights in 20 or so years of working as a ring announcer, back in the late 90s, I actually worked a fight card at the Roxy.
We mentioned this.
On ESPN2, yeah, Bobby Tomasello. And he later succumbed to his injuries from that fight, and I've never forgotten it. Not that I knew Bobby well, because I didn't, but I had announced him in a few previous fight cards. And as you know, Peter, when you go to work on a TV fight card somewhere, you kind of hanging around the hotel with everyone for a couple days. You do get to know people, and I remember I'd introduced him at a card down the Cape the previous year. There was an ESPN card, and that's really left a lasting impression on me.
My good friend Emily Harney, who's a photographer, has said that moment changed her life and her outlook on the sport of boxing.
Yeah, and it really, and so I'm still a boxing guy, and I still love the sport. I mean, there are a lot of collision sports that are dangerous. I think we're finding a lot of football players are suffering severe brain injuries from concussions and et cetera. But when you talk about this debate between UFC and mixed martial arts and boxing, partly from my experiences like that with Bobby Tomasello, I'm convinced that boxing is more dangerous to the fighters than mixed martial arts is. Now, you'll sometimes see some more severe injuries to mixed martial artists. However,
blown out knees and blowed out.
Yeah, or yeah,
elbows,
I mean, I see someone's arm pulled out of the socket. Right. I mean, that's a little disturbing, also. But in terms of long-term effects and seriousness of
neurological trauma,
head trauma,
yeah, because the boxers sometimes, like this kid Tomasello, went 10 rounds. He lost 10 rounds in a row to a guy that he was clearly thrown in with over his head, but instead of quitting somewhere along the line, he went the distance and took a terrible beating to his head. Usually mixed martial arts, if it's a knockout, it's like bang, bang, and it's over, or there's a tap out or some type of injury, whatever it might be, but usually the end comes quickly in a mixed martial arts fight. Someone doesn't sustain a half-hour beating.
And there's more ways for them to defend themselves because they can go to the ground and wrestle.
So, I love boxing, and it's been a great experience in my life, but... I've never forgotten that fight in that night with Bobby Tomasello. It was in the late 90s.
And we did mention that earlier on during the program.
Okay. Anyhow, let's go on to Brockton.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. We had the new interim police chief of Brockton, Robert Hayden, join us in studio yesterday here.
Hell of a guy,
on PM in the AM. Oh, he's a character.
He's a hell of a guy.
Let's talk about tonight. You have to go before the city council and basically try to get them to pass an ordinance to allow him to be a civilian police commissioner. Right now, he is the interim police chief. There was an argument in court on Friday before he was sworn in as interim police chief to see whether or not he could be considered the interim police chief due to the fact that he is over the age of 65 years old. Tell us what your pitch is going to be to the city council tonight.
Well, I think I think some folks have tried to muddy the water on this issue and make it more complicated than it is. First of all, it's been very clear for some time that Bob Hayden was going to be my key guy in public safety and law enforcement if I was fortunate enough to win the election. He was at my side many times during the campaign. I publicly credited him repeatedly with helping me craft our 10-point plan to restore safe neighborhoods. When they had the public safety meeting at the Arnone School, at a time that I thought the prior administration really had no answers whatsoever as to what they were going to do about the rash of violence, Bob Hayden was sitting at my side for that. And even to the point that when I had one-on-one meetings with city councilors in the second week of December, Bob Hayden was sitting right next to me. And I spent an average about an hour individually with each city councilor talking about some of my initiatives for the first half of the first year. And about half of that hour was each counselor having a chance to speak with Bob Hayden, because I told the counselors back at that time that my intention was to file an ordinance that would allow me to appoint a civilian police commissioner. I'm asking for this tool from the council simply so that Bob Hayden can come in here and lead the Brockton Police Department for a while. I'm not looking for something permanent. I'm not looking for something long-term. Bob Hayden's 71 years old. Bob Hayden never asked me for a job. I asked him if he would come here and help us. Why would I do that? Take a look at the guy's resume. He is one of the most respected people in law enforcement in the country. Bill Bratton, huge supporter of Bob Hayden's. The police commissioner in Boston who just stepped down. Ed Davis, I've spoken to on the phone a couple times regarding Bob Hayden. Huge Bob Hayden supporter. Ed Davis said to me, you cannot get a better person to lead the Brockton Police Department than Bob Hayden. We had Ray Flynn at City Hall on Friday afternoon to tell the residents of Brockton that we'll never get anyone better to change this city and reduce crime than Bob Hayden. This is a guy who back in the 80s started the first gang unit in the city of Boston. Took on it, Ray Flynn said Friday, this is the guy I gave all of the toughest assignments as the deputy superintendent. He went up to Lawrence in the early to mid-90s, reduced crime dramatically up there. His mayor up in Lawrence at the time was a lady named Mary Claire Kennedy. She was at Brockton City Hall Friday afternoon to tell the residents of Brockton directly that you have a great opportunity if you can get Bob Hayden to lead your police department. Mr. Hayden went on to be the Undersecretary of Public Safety for a number of years at the state level. He also oversaw the T-Police. So this is a guy with decades of city law enforcement success at the city, state, I checked that back, at the city and state levels. And, you guys had a chance to meet him. He has the ability to come in here and have a direct impact in leading this police department, reducing crime in the city, restoring morale in this police department, and making changes. And I ran on making changes, and I won the election. And I don't think there's ever been any mayor after winning an election that has not been allowed to put their own team in place. And I think when you're the mayor, the most important appointment you make is police chief. And in this case, I'd like to make it a civilian police commissioner. The civilian police commissioner is simply a tool so that I can hire someone over the age of 65 to lead that department. And so that's what we're asking the council for. Now, when I met with councilors in December, no one objected. A couple councilors expressed concerns about a couple specific issues. So we took that working draft of the ordinance for a civilian police commissioner, and we tweaked it a little to address the concerns of the councilors. So anyone that tries to say in the paper, I wasn't transparent, or another word that I read, caught blindsided. Are you kidding me? I met with Mr. Hayden, with city councilors in person way back in the second week of December, and subsequently we made a couple of changes to the language in that ordinance to address the concerns that were raised by councilors. So as an example, they wanted to make sure that the city council would have the right to approve the candidate. I put that in there. I've got no problem. I would have planned to bring Mr. Hayden to the council for approval anyhow. They were concerned about a time limit, that we not create a long-term permanent position. I put a 12-month time limit in the language. I can only appoint him for 12 months. And the language says that if there was any attempt to reappoint him, I would have to come back to the council for approval. I could only do it if the council agreed. So, I have put very strong language in there to keep the council involved in the process at all times. I've put a relatively short time limit on the appointment. And, going in front of the council's ordinance committee tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to go there, I'm still willing to talk. If there are, I'm looking to work with the council. I think a few of the councilors may not be looking to work with me, but I'm willing to work with the council. And if based upon tonight's discussion, there's another question or something else that we need to tweak to get this right, to get it in a manner that the council can support it with us, then I'm prepared to continue the conversation.
There'll be a few points that some opponents of this idea might make in relation to not having him be the interim police chief or the civilian commissioner. And a few of those points would be
well,
his
Peter,
age.
first of all, those are two separate topics.
Yes.
Because the court affirmed my right to appoint him as a temporary or an interim police chief, and that's been done. But that's only a 60-day appointment, and the purpose of that was to give us the 60 days for me to work with the council in getting this ordinance enacted. So go ahead.
Still, some might not like the idea, even though the court did order that you can appoint him on Friday. The points that they'll make against him is his age. He's 71 years old, beyond the age of 65, which is the age limit for a sworn-in police officer in the state of Massachusetts, I believe. The other they'll make is his health. He does have cancer. And the other they'll make is finances. Can the city afford this? Can you address those?
Sure, and very easily all of them. If anyone is suggesting I should discriminate against the most qualified candidate based upon their age or their health history, that's ludicrous. You guys met him yesterday. Bob Hayden might be the youngest 71-year-old guy I've ever met. This is a guy who 2 years ago, at the age of 69, rode a bicycle across the entire country of Ireland all by himself, not even accompanied by anybody, just always wanted to ride a bike across Ireland, so he did it. I couldn't do it today, let alone at the age of 69. So at the age of 69, this guy rode a bike across the country of Ireland. This is also a guy who was on a TV reality show, Lost, and was dropped in the middle of the jungle in Belize with nothing but a knife.
Which we didn't get to yesterday with him, but he told me off the air.
Yeah, and this is also a guy who, I think in his early 60s, around the age of 60, thwarted an airline hijacking. He and a retired Marine that was sitting next to him subdued three guys and put the plastic cuffs on him and held him down until the plane could land. It was a national news story, appeared on Rush Limbaugh. So this is not an ordinary guy. And so no concern about the age. Is Bob Hayden battling cancer? Sure. And we've never sought to conceal it. I have a couple of other cancer survivors working for me, too. I actually kind of love the fact when I've got someone that's a cancer survivor working with me. You know why? They've got a great attitude, a great sense of urgency. They appreciate every day that they've got. And I've found them to be just tremendously motivated and energetic individuals. So, Bob Hayden's a fighter. And again, this is not a 5-year plan. This is a 1-year plan. And Bob Hayden is by far the most eminently qualified. Let me address the money issue, though. You asked me about that, too. At the end of the day, because some of the councilors are just trying to make this so complex and I'm wasting money. First of all, every single person during the campaign agreed we need to hire more police officers. We're on demand. In the deal with Captain Gomes, he resumed his position of captain. There have always been statutorily 6 captains by ordinance. One of the positions was being held open because he was on a leave of absence. He simply returned to his prior spot. And yes, he's going to earn chief's pay instead of captain's pay for 1 year because he had 1 year remaining on his contract. The difference is about $27,000. In terms of the cost, that's, to me, all we've done with that move is pay for a captain or hire a captain. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to hire a captain for the Brockton Police Department with Captain Gomes' experience and background and training. I think it's a great move for the Brockton Police Department, and I'm thrilled that he agreed to stay. Will there be a price tag when we pay Hayden? Of course. And you know what? If they don't pass the ordinance, then I'm going to hire someone else as the chief, and they'll earn a paycheck also. The cost is about $150,000 a year, significantly less than Captain Gomes was earning as the chief. And if there's anyone that, we've got a $360-some-odd million budget. If there's anyone for a moment who thinks that we shouldn't spend $150,000 out of that budget to reduce crime in the city and hire the best leader we possibly can for the Brockton Police Department, then I say they're taking a very short-sighted view. And I don't want to go back and visit history, but this is the same city council that approved a $3.5 million pay raise for the firefighters a few months ago is now going to tell me that we can't afford $150,000 to fight crime in this city? I think that's a ludicrous argument. That's a politically motivated argument. I think that, and I hope that the councilors will spend some time talking to their constituents over the weekend, because I know I have the overwhelming support of the residents in the city, and I know I have the overwhelming support of the rank and file police officers, the patrolmen and the detectives who are out on the front lines, out on the street, are supporting this move with Bob Hayden. And one of the interesting things you saw at that press conference on Friday, and I can't give you the exact number, but there had to be 70, 80. It
was packed in there.
100. Well, no, the overall crowd I'm told was 400, but in terms of former law enforcement officials who formerly at some point in their career worked with Bob Hayden, who came all the way to Brockton on a Friday afternoon just to show their support for this man. We've got the number 2 ranking officer in the Boston Police Department, the deputy chief, a guy, Chief Willie Gross. He was there. You think he's got nothing better to do on a Friday afternoon than be in Brockton to support Bob Hayden? I spent some time with him in my office, and he said, I'm here. He said, I came on the job as a cadet under Bob Hayden. I'm in the seat I'm in today because of Bob Hayden. There's nothing in the world that I wouldn't do for Bob Hayden. And I heard that comment. It had to be 75, maybe even 100 current and retired law enforcement officers who worked with Bob Hayden at some point in his career. This is a guy who's a dynamic leader, who will inspire the confidence of the people who work under him, who will motivate the people who work under him, and who will bring in new techniques and new resources to fight the violent crime in this city. It's the number 1 issue facing this city. We're not going to fix anything else until we turn this tide on violent crime. And in my opinion, Bob Hayden is the best person in the world to lead that effort right now. And for those that are concerned about whether we're going to appoint a chief or not, part of what Hayden's going to do for me during his tenure here is he's going to be evaluating, assessing other individuals in the Brockton Police Department, so that when he's ready to hand off the baton, he will be making a recommendation to me as to who he feels is best equipped to lead the Brockton Police Department going forward, long term.
From within the department?
Most likely, yeah. Right. I mean, he'll be absolutely assessing people within the department, and the only reason I wouldn't promote someone from within the department would be if he tells me we've got absolutely no one that can do it, and I don't believe that's the case. I think we have some great men and women in the Brockton Police Department, but I think that the opportunity for some folks to learn and mentor under Hayden for a year, to have Hayden help us select the most highly qualified candidate, instead of me having to pick someone right now less than 30 days on the job and give them a 3-year contract to run the police department, I have an opportunity to bring this person in. And Chief Hayden, among the many accomplishments he will have during his tenure, will also be the person who advises me as to who he feels the best candidate is in the Brockton Police Department to take the baton or take the ball and run with it when he's ready to step aside.
2 more questions, as I know you are pressed for time.
That's
to
okay.
some degree.
No, I had 2.5 hours sleep last night.
Okay. First question, you mentioned that you feel that some of the city councilors may not want to work with you. You're willing to work with all of the city councilors. At this point in time, describe your working relationship with the city council as a whole.
I have, since 2 days after the election, done everything I can possibly do to establish a good working relationship with the council. I've made myself available. We've kept the council informed on issues. We met with councilors before we got there. I've agreed to a weekly or bi-weekly standing meeting with Council President Mr. Sullivan. We've only had a couple things so far in front of the council, but I've indicated a willingness to work together with the councilors. And I'm not getting into naming names. I think the majority of the councilors all want what's best for the city and are willing to work with me. But when I see and hear a few of the things that are said, I think that there might be some councilors who have political agendas and feel it's politically advantageous to oppose anything I want to do. You'd have to ask those councilors. But when on this issue, Peter, when we're talking about public safety, we're talking about trying to reduce crime. There's bullets flying in the city almost every day and night. They don't usually hit someone, but we get calls for shots fired almost every day. everyone who lives in this city wants to see us reduce crime, make the city safer. We'll never bring this city back until we make it safer. Families will not buy houses here. Businesses will not start here. Businesses will not expand here until we make the city safer. This is the number one issue, and because of that, I believe that this is a non-partisan issue. Anyone who lives here, let alone any elected official, wants the city to be safer, and I think that I'm proposing a plan that is the best possible way. And I know just with Chief Hayden being on the job for only a few days, I have received numerous phone calls from Brockton police officers who have had the opportunity to meet him just in the last few days, who have said, wow, how did you ever get this guy to come here and lead our police department? And so I think if the folks in this city and the elected officials will just give him an opportunity, they will quickly come to find out why I believe it's critical that we take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have an individual like Bob Hayden come in here and help us for a little while.
I asked a similar question to Chief Hayden yesterday, and I'll ask your perspective. Last Friday, when he was sworn in as interim police chief of Brockton, prior to being sworn in, there was some union opposition to his appointment. I asked him how that would affect his working relationship moving forward with the union and folks within the Brockton Police Department. He said that's all done, old hat. I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Right.
But moving forward, that's not in his mind whatsoever. What have you observed in the past week?
I feel the same way. I mean, Lieutenant Mills, first of all, just to clarify for people, the union that filed the objection with the court to the appointment was the police supervisors union. That's 38 ranking officers. There are about 140 some odd other police officers who belong to the patrolmen's union who has not opposed this appointment of Mr. Hayden. So to be clear, this is a union that represents a small percentage of the ranking officers. And you know what? I'm a huge believer in the collective bargaining process. I'm a huge believer in the role that unions play. So, you know, I saw Lieutenant Mills at last night's city council meeting. We had a couple of very friendly and cordial conversations. I think I understand his role. He understands my role. And I agree with the chief that once these little things are behind us, it's forgotten. What Chief Hayden is going to do is he's going to bring everyone together under him. And I agree with that. And I've tried to take the same approach as mayor in terms of I haven't kept a scorecard on who was on whose team during the last election. I'm trying to do the best I can to get this city turned around and get us all working together to improve the quality of life in the city, to hold the line on taxes, to improve city services, to restart the economy, to create jobs, and number one, to make this city safe. And Bob Hayden is the guy to lead that. And I agree with his assessment, and I knew he would feel that way. Bob Hayden is a leader. He knows how to lead. You know, the fact that a union filed a request for an injunction is irrelevant.
Any final words for our listeners before you head out this morning?
Well, I would just let folks know that if they are interested, there is the public hearing this evening of the Ordinance Committee of the City Council. This is not a full council meeting. This is Councilor Ianieri as the chair of Ordinance, which consists of 5 councilors, but I suspect most or all of them will be there. That public hearing is tonight. Come on out and attend it if you're able to. If you're not, be sure to. I'm told, and I'm not sure, not my department, but I believe BCA is going to broadcast this meeting, which they normally don't on subcommittee meetings, but I think because there is such widespread public interest in this, I believe BCA is going to broadcast it. So if they do, you can watch it on Channel 12. I'm sure the replays will be running for a few days. But if you care about the future of this city, if you care about making this city safer for ourselves, our parents, our children, if you believe in restoring safe neighborhoods to this city, safe, clean, livable neighborhoods, then please let your counselor know that you support this ordinance that will allow us to have Bob Hayden come in for a year and lead the Brockton Police Department.
That is the mayor of Brockton, Bill Carpenter, joining us here on WXBR. Bill, thank you.
Great to see you guys, and I know we basically only talked about one topic, but
that's all we have time for, really.
It is the biggest issue in front of the city. It is topical. The hearing is tonight. But as we go along, we'll be working on a lot of things, and I will do the best I can to make myself available to your listeners.
And we'll chat with you about further subjects in the future. You're
All right,
listening to
guys.
the Metro South Morning Show.
Have a great
PM
day,
in the
everybody.
AM. We'll step aside for a quick break. Back with more of the program after this local news update.